You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello and welcome to the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from this past week, as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others are also available on all major podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Podbay, and Speaker. I'm Miranda Morales, one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and this is a team effort, a trios effort, actually. So let's bring in the rest of the trios team. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, Feliz Año Nuevo! Happy New Year!
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. The free week trial already has been pretty strange, but we'll see how the rest of it goes.
I love that. And literally 7 days in, everyone's like, cancel.
I want my refund.
Yeah, don't charge me my credit card.
Do not renew.
Good analogy. And the third member of this trio is, well, who? That is the one and only Brendan Barr. Brendan.
That's who.
Yeah. Happy New Year. How's it going?
Happy New Year. I'm doing good. We had a late Christmas party today, so now I have a beanie that plays music. Or I can listen to Lucha blogs too, I guess, but that doesn't seem nearly fun.
Well, if you're wearing a beanie, that seems like a pretty good.
Right?
Pretty good use of it. I mean, I don't have any beanies that play music. I feel like beanies would be a lot more fun.
That's what I'm hoping. That's how I'm hoping this plays out. I was excited about this. I traded aggressively to get that instead of booze. So I know that there are some people that are going to be really upset to hear that, but musical beanie sounded better than peanut butter flavored whiskey. So.
That's true. I'm not a big whiskey person, so I would have had way more use out of a, musical beanie than of whiskey. You can't even cook with whiskey, too, maybe some meaner. That would be the only thing I would think of. How am I going to use
pecan pie?
Oh, I do love pecan pie.
Yeah.
Good point, indeed. Well, speaking of gifts, and we are all coming out of the holiday season, I know you gentlemen got some great purchases from lucha-masks.com, one of the sponsors and partners of luchacentral.com. You hear the commercials all the time, but Brendan and Dusty, you have some I would say, maybe not, it's not exclusive because it's been out there for quite some time, but you guys want to maybe share some information about some of the new masks that have dropped with lucha-masks.com.
Oh, yeah, there's been a ton of new content. There was a drop for the Lucha Bros recently. They continued the Hayabusa line. I have two of the Hayabusas, but they've got a new one that's like a Pentagon Hayabusa fusion. Ray Puma, Juventud, of course Pentagon and Phoenix, everybody, Super Astro. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of cool new stuff.
I haven't gotten a response yet, but I asked if the Juventud one comes with free juice.
Yeah, no response yet. No official response.
Yep.
On spending, but that's a fair question to ask. Very fair question to ask.
Right?
Yes. Yes, and that's very
Booby
cool.
juice.
The masks at lucha-masks.com continue. I mean, they continue to produce some amazing quality masks, and I think you mentioned it in a previous show where a lot of them are around just for a limited time.
They really are.
Yeah, so once they're gone, they are gone. So that's why we bring it up. Not only, some of the new things that have dropped, but also because maybe some things that you checked out before are no longer there. So that same thing may happen with the new masks that are being out there or that have gone out there. So check out.
Or replaced with a new style, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah.
I highly recommend visiting lucha-masks.com.
There is one more I want to get in there because as I like to remind people, the sales of these benefit the wrestlers that are involved. So there's a Perros del Mal on there, which that still goes to the family of Perro Aguayo Jr. So that's, plus it's Perros del Mal, so come on. It was
Yeah.
So cool. Pretty fierce. That's the selling point of itself, but very, very, very cool. Just designs. The quality of them are fantastic as well. They've lasted and both of you have purchased masks from there. So what has been your experience in actually the quality and kind of the durability of the masks?
Oh my gosh, they're the highest quality. Like I don't know, they just feel safer than a regular fabric mask when you put it on, the layers and everything. And they're semi-rigid when you put them on, like they hold their shape really well on your face. And it just has substance to it that makes it feel much more deluxe and much more protective than a regular mask. And the best part is the straps don't go around your ears. They go like all the way around your head. So they are super comfortable.
That's
super,
a really
super
good point.
comfortable.
That's great for me. They're super, super comfortable. I said that when talking to somebody else. I can't go back to the over-the-ear ones, although I've heard strong arguments. There are people who can only wear over-the-ear ones. So there will be styles and stuff that you can get as well. But this is their normal design here are full wraparound. So it also makes the art on them stand out better by being that way.
It really does. Yeah.
Seems like it holds the structure better.
Yes.
And these are layered like a real lucha mask. Like if you buy the Lince Dorado, it looks like Lince Dorado's mask. Like they sewed the layers of stuff together to make the detail. Like it's not a print pattern. It's sewn on. And they are super deluxe.
Yeah, they're great.
Well, tomorrow's payday for me, so it looks like I'm going to lucha-masks.com.
Yeah.
Especially to look, of course I gotta look at Lince's for sure. I do like the Penna designs and, there's a lot more. I believe it was maybe, I have to look, now I'm curious. Is it Lucha? I think it was another brand. But I want to say, I don't know.
It might have been the other one that we were looking at when we were talking about masks or for the show that we'll talk about a little later in the show.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it might have been one of those.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I mean, hey, that means I'm just gonna go there and look at all of the masks and spend some of that payday money. Like when you first get paid, for me it's like, for some reason like I have a hole burning in my pocket, which is not the case because I have bills and things to pay, but whatnot. But at the same time, you know what? Just because the holiday season's over doesn't mean that buying gifts is also over. So no, this was it. So they also have a new Ace Austin mask.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I knew that's what I was gonna say because I saw Ace Austin wearing it, and it's pretty cool. I saw him on, I think his Instagram, wearing it. So it's a pretty cool one, with his logo. And of course the new mystical one, the silver one. So pretty.
All of the Mystico and Caristico ones are just fantastic.
Yes. But yes, everyone, go ahead. I mean, we got to shill a little bit, but that's only because we only endorse products that we believe in here on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast.
Absolutely.
So we're not going to shill anything that we do not believe in, that we do not endorse, that we would not purchase or wear ourselves. So go to lucha-masks.com to get your very own mask, way to protect yourself, keep yourself safe. Speaking of,
and stylish too. I mean, and
stylish.
super stylish too. Yeah.
Very stylish. Some of the coolest masks out there. I mean, I was going to segue into, speaking of staying safe, our signature segment. No, because I kind of know what you're going to get at to Road to Shows. Hopefully the listeners know a little bit, Just say the line. Say the line, Brent. Say that signature line.
Well, okay. The signature line normally is Mexico City is still orange, but, and the but this time is no, it's actually red. And Baja California too, right?
Oh man, just
wow.
like the signature, you picked it up on us.
You think you know somebody.
Yeah, you think you know somebody. Mexico City, and we don't even know you anymore?
I don't know. I don't know how they. Well, I do know how this happened, but they were.
There's a science behind why this
happened. Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into the nitty-gritty details, but please continue.
So, accordingly, the majority of shows were canceled. Even the CMLL Christmas show that I teased a couple of weeks ago that I said we were going to have coverage for when we came back, they canceled. Everybody except IWRG canceled, and we'll get to what I think about that later. So there will not be a lot of lucha news coming out of Mexico City for the next few weeks, I'm sure. They by the time this goes up, they will have reevaluated, but my estimation is it will probably stay at red, and we'll be looking at 2 weeks past that for the next chance at orange. Maybe someday we'll make it to yellow, but it won't be for my birthday.
Yeah.
And then in more COVID-related news, we have the follow-up on Damien666 and his wife. It is a very mixed bag. Damien was released from the hospital over the holiday break. However, his wife did pass away while in the hospital. So I know that's a hard loss for the family. I mean, it's a little rough for the time of year too. So definitely our hearts go out to them. And I mean, words are failing me on what to say or even wish somebody in that situation. I'm very sad to have to report on that.
Yeah.
Also, Mystico, tested positive for COVID. The implications of how that's going to affect shows is a little hard. I mean, fortunately, CMLL is not running right now, so that's good. Unfortunately, he's from kind of a big family. So they're doing testing for, Roosh and Bestia and all of the rest of the family, but haven't heard any follow-up on if any of the other members have had that, but everyone in the wrestling world is on high alert because, it's family. It was Christmas time. They probably saw each other if they didn't, So, keep your ears open. He has said in his statement that he's a fighter and a strong young man, so he has every intention of coming out of this better than when he went in. And I kind of believe him, but we will be giving updates on that situation as well. In more lighthearted, but still COVID-related news, there have been PSAs from a couple of different wrestling companies out of Mexico to try and encourage mask wearing. And there are two variations on the same thing. One of them has wrestlers putting people that aren't wearing masks into various looking holds, and they're just using that kind of imagery to suggest that you should wear your mask or else you might get hurt. And the other one, which is the one that went mini viral for a second there, like everybody I knew showed it to me, was the luchadors hitting people with chairs that aren't wearing masks. So those are your PSAs. Wrestlers will hurt you if you don't wear masks because they wear masks all the time, and now they're tired of it interfering with their ability to have shows. So be warned, people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, resist the urge to not wear a mask just so that you can have somebody put you in a Yave hole. But
I don't know. If I saw Angelico coming at me, I'd put my mask on fast.
Yeah, like when you had those options, I'd just put it on.
You never know. I mean, I've been to more than one show where they have found the biggest wrestler in the room and given them money to be chopped. So
Yeah.
there are people out there that legitimately don't care about their own well-being as if they can have something fun out of it, and it's kind of terrifying. In other medical news, over the break, the story that we didn't get to cover, Septimo Dragon was in a hit and run accident, at least it's being called a hit and run accident. I mean, we live in this world of allegations all the time, but I'm calling it that because that's what it was in the Mexican press release. He had to go undergo surgery for his liver. He's expected to make a full recovery. For those of you who are unaware, Septimo Dragon was currently under contract to MLW up here in the United States and working kind of indie shows in Mexico. And then the last time that some listeners to this show might have seen him was at last year's Expo Lucha. So he seems to be doing all right. Again, I wish him a speedy and healthy recovery, and I will always remind him to put that stupid chin strap on instead of wrestling with his mask undone. Cannot tell you how many times I've seen somebody rip a mask off his head because he won't take that chin strap. And then we had our little fun story over the break too. Pimpinella opened up a chicken place. It's La Pimpy's Chicken. It's in Torreon, and I mean, it sounds like it's a terrible time to open up a new restaurant. So I really wish you a lot of luck because that's a great idea. Pimpinella Escarlata with a chicken place.
Yeah, I like it.
I love it. It's such a fancy, fun chicken.
Yeah.
Pollo Exotico.
See? Yeah, there we go. Pollo's La Pimpy is the proper name. Yeah,
name.
Yeah. And then just a quick little teaser. We will talk more about this later, but the Rey Netwerk did shut down over the break too. So there's implications for it, but that is the home of Lucha Underground, where many people started to really get a love for Lucha and some of the luchadors we talk about a lot on this show. So kind of sad news, but it is what it is. And I'm gonna skip the quick the normal tossing back and forth here. I don't have much for the indie roundup because, as I mentioned, the majority of shows were canceled. So IWRG did run shows, but I decided that it would be better to not reward running shows in the middle of the Mexico City being red and doing it as a secret show, and just say, no, if you want the results for IWRG, they are up on Lucha Central, but I'm not going to give them extra publicity. If you are listening to this and you have heard my constant request for more indie shows, please send us your indie shows and stress to me how you're running a safe show, because right now that's what I'm going to really focus on. People that are running safe shows and putting on good fun, literally clean fun for the crowds or the non-crowds. So, let's make that the focus for the next couple of weeks. Show me your healthy shows.
No plug for you.
Yeah. I love it.
Yes. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, your road back to shows in this week's Indie Roundup. Thank you, Brendan, always for kicking off the show. Again, you threw us for a loop with the change in status, but that's why you all have to watch, or maybe listen to the Lucha Central Weekly podcast, because you never know what you're going to get. Now, we're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo with this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez, as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
As always, a big thank you to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central, letting you know what is happening throughout the Lucha Central week, or the Lucha Central Podcast Network. I do want to give out some special quick plugs to a few of the podcasts on the network. Our sister show, La Hermana show, the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast in Español. This week, they're going to be discussing Conan's statements on the importance of alliances between companies. Big news out there as far as Conan's thoughts. The controversial Blue Demon Jr. NWA Championship and the Mesas at Ring of Honor. In addition, in the next few days, I believe, actually may be happening right now, the Lucha Central 2020 End of Year Awards are now available on luchacentral.com. This is different than the Lucha Central Weekly End of Year Awards, which is what me and Brendan and Dusty came up with. These are actually fan-voted awards. So you can go to luchacentral.com. And on there, though, see, this is where the tricky part comes in, is that the category, there is going to be a category for your favorite Lucha Central Podcast Network show. So, I mean, look, let's get serious here. Let's just talk for a second. You should vote for us, because we're the best, and we ask nicely, please, to do that.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. We bring you all of the news, the happenings, the flavor, the humor, the fun. We do that for you every week. For free. And we endorse only the best products for you. We let you know what you could buy, where you could buy it. We even let you know where you get your chicken from, because we care that much. So just putting that out there that, and this is, I don't even know if we're nominated. Look, I'm even just gonna, that's how much, I am not sure. However, I also feel like, I mean, if we're there, you should definitely vote for us. So, please and thank you on there. But also listen to, the Lucha Central Weekly podcast in Espanol. Also, friend of the show, Jerry Villagrana's, coming back with Photo Versus. This week, Jerry's going to be speaking with El Gallo Tapado regarding the best dry rub for chicken wings. Because, I mean, literally the only other, between Lucha Libre and food, that's pretty much what our podcast and website's about.
This show is brought to you by chicken. I know what I'm eating.
Oil. Yes. Jerry also speaks to Matematico regarding the importance of STEM education in the 21st century, and Super Muñeco joins Kevin Kleinrock and Jerry as they rank all of the Toy Story movies, including the short films. So
that's going to be amazing.
Yes.
That's going to be really amazing.
Yes. And this is for, Jerry, Kevin, Super Muñeco this week. So, if you want to get that dry chicken rub, wanting to talk about STEM education and Toy Story, literally, how can you not check out the show? So, those are just a few specific plugs that we just wanted to throw in there for some of our partner shows. And, of course, the sister show, La Hermana, of Lucha Central Weekly in Espanol. So you can check those out at luchacentral.com and also your favorite podcast streaming platform. So let's get to the meat of the show, because I'm still thinking about chicken. WWE news from kind of just the past few weeks. I mean, we've had a shift where the past few weeks we have had no Lucha content, but yet there's a light out there. Things have been changing, Dusty. So let us know what's happened on Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah, well, not a lot on SmackDown, honestly, but there's been some development on Raw and in WWE at large. And starting on Raw, like that familiar thing WWE falls back on when ratings slip, Legends Night!
Bring in the legend!
Yeah, it was a mixed bag. But, it started with Angel Garza. We found out that last week during the WWE New Year's Eve party on TikTok, our man Angel Garza won the 24/7 title from R-Truth.
Wait, so it wasn't even on TV?
Yeah, it was on TikTok.
It wasn't even on YouTube. It was on TikTok. It was only like a snippet.
I take back half of the nice things I said about you, WWE.
And then we immediately see Angel backstage with the Rose. He's chatting up Alicia Fox, but the Rose isn't for her. He wanders further backstage, and we see Tatanka in his full tribal dance regalia with the full headdress, and we see Sergeant Slaughter chatting up the Mountie. But that's not the Mountie. It's Mickie James dressed as a Mountie for no reason. And so Angel just slides right in to chat her up and give her the rose. Sergeant Slaughter snatches it and calls him a maggot. I'm honestly not sure what this scene was about, but I guess it was Angel informing us that Mickie James is a legend now instead of an active superstar. I have no idea. I'd like to believe that somehow they're jealous of AEW's cross promotion, and this is leading us to Nick Aldis versus Angel for the 10 pounds of gold. Maybe even Nikki's love, but I doubt it. And it led us to Angel further backstage with a new rose, this time for Tori Wilson. She declined it, but told him Cardi B was down the hall. Angel, he was obviously familiar with Cardi B. He ran down the hall, but it wasn't Cardi B. It was the Boogeyman who was back for Legends Night. And he was able to scare Angel into running distracted, which led to R-Truth running in and getting the pin and then dancing away with the title. Ron Simmons was walking by, and he saw Angel there on the floor and the state of his current booking against his charisma and his looks and his ability, and he said what so many of us were thinking, damn! So that's what we had for Angel Garza. But we did have some great news for Lucha House Party this week.
It's
Along
true.
with some exciting news from Miranda a little later. We had Lindsay and Metalik showing up first backstage with Melina, who knew who they were, knew the Lucha chant. That was pretty awesome. And then in the ring against the Raw Tag Team Champions, the Hurt Business, Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. This was a quick match after some pretty solid action from both Lindsay and Grand Metalik, better than they've gotten in a long time. There was some bickering between Cedric and Shelton, and that allowed Lindsay to seize the moment, twist Shelton up for the pin, allowed Lucha House Party to get a very big win on what was a very big night for WWE, a lot of eyes on the talent. And so, it's multifaceted. Angel got moved into the 24/7 picture, but Lucha House Party got moved out. And so it's, multifaceted, but
that
Go ahead.
That was their second big win, right?
Yes, yeah, there was a bigger win. Metalik had a big win over the Christmas break. I thought I had it in my notes, but I don't.
It was the
Miz.
It was totally the Miz.
But
WrestleMania main eventer and multi-time champion, the Miz, who also
likely next champion or very soon future champion.
Yeah,
got that briefcase
that he has back. Yeah,
that he somehow got back because Morrison did it technically, cashed it on his behalf.
Yeah,
just a little continuity there. That is what Johnny Mundo is now doing.
Yeah,
I don't even remember the last time he actually really wrestled, but
I don't remember the last time he looked like a main event talent, but it sure was WWE.
Dang.
I mean, it's misuse. It's not him. It's them.
No, exactly.
I mean, this guy was, so big in Impact. He was so big in Lucha Underground. He was so big in AAA. And he's barely a side man for The Miz. He's just kind of like the comic relief. And that's disappointing to me with his ability.
Right.
I mean, we've all seen what he can do. And, we talk about how much they misuse some of the luchadors, but they are just as much misusing Johnny Mundo, John Morrison, whatever you'd like to call him. He is, it's sad. I get not everybody can be a star, but you could make everybody look good. Not everybody has to look like a doofus. And
it's true.
It's strange to me. But it looks like better things are coming now for the luchadors. There was some news before that we had kind of mentioned, rumors more than anything, not even news, that the big men and some of the luchadors had been sent back to the Performance Center. Well, lately the big men and the luchadors have gotten quite a push. And so, maybe it wasn't like a bad thing that they were being sent down there. Maybe they were preparing them for this next thing. And we have seen Lucha House Party on NXT now, from associated with the Performance Center. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there. We'll get to it later in NXT, but there's a lot of things going on that are interesting, and I think that maybe the days of seeing Grand Metalik misused, they've misused him from the beginning. He made it to the finals, but he lost to TJP in the original Cruiserweight Classic. That was a mistake, in my opinion, and everything they've done has been kind of a misstep, but they're finally on the right track. And I'm excited to see where things go. Rey Mysterio allegedly has a lot more influence on SmackDown now, and so I think that hopefully we'll see a shift towards More lucha libre. WWE is kind of like the greatest hits of wrestling, and they give you a little bit of everything from around the world, but they make it feel like the lucha stuff isn't very important or is comedy at best. So it's exciting to see these guys taken seriously and taken legitimately and used in a proper fashion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very,
the
very
luchadors they have Mascara Dorada, they have Andrade, who was La Sombra. I mean, they've got Berto Carrillo, they got Angel Garza, they've got Kalisto, they've got Lindsay, they've got Rey Mysterio, they Fantasma, Santos, as he's known now. There's just so much going on in WWE, and they could have the strongest lucha roster in the world with only a few small additions.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we'll see something like that.
That does tie in a little bit to a rumor that circulated just a few weeks ago about WWE exploring NXT Lucha Libre type of show. This comes on the heels of rumors also around the idea that they are going to film an NXT India format at the
absolutely.
I think at the Capitol Event Center. It could be in that same area, but just a few weeks after that, there was rumors going around about a possible Lucha Libre show, and talking about all of the talent there. I mean, you easily could not only have those superstars on a Lucha Libre type of show, but you can even have them headline the show and even bring in more stars from the Performance Center or some of the newer signees to then, fill in the rest of the show. So on top of the fantastic talent that they have, world-renowned talent, that, and again, it hasn't been founded yet, so it's still under a lot of speculation. Right. But that also comes on the heels that I believe it was probably around a year or two ago, there was rumors that they were exploring some type of Latin American tournament, very similar to what they did in the UK. And again, I mean, they could have easily brought in talent from all over Latin America for a tournament, very much like we've saw in how, say, like a Lindsay came in through the Cruiserweight Championship tournament. Same thing with Grand Metalik. And even a lot of superstars with, Lucha Libre backgrounds, like a TJP that came in, I mean,
absolutely.
There's limitless possibilities with these ideas, and so maybe things will come into fruition. Maybe it's just speculation, just like some other things. But you brought up a really good point about who's on the roster and who they can actually leverage. And maybe it is having just more of a proper Lucha Libre format that really showcases Lucha Libre talent and really more just like honors that form of wrestling, just like they've really idealized the UK talent.
Yes, they have.
That UK style. Yeah.
And the other great thing about this is WWE seems very serious about having their people train with them. They bring in other people, don't get me wrong, but you have your people like Randy Orton that have always been WWE, and that is a big deal to WWE. Or even The Miz, he's always been WWE. That's a big deal. And some of these guys don't have the seasoning and training that they would get traveling all around the world that your independent wrestlers have. And so WWE having India, having the UK, having Mexico may give these time for these Performance Center signees to go other places, learn other styles, other cultures, and kind of adapt and be better, more well-rounded wrestlers in the future, even if they don't stick with the WWE style or the Lucha style or whatever they learn. They could be better for it for having the training everywhere, or the ability to train anywhere. And allegedly, Jeff Jarrett's signing had something to do with the India and Mexico expansions due to his association with AAA and his work in India with Impact. And so it's looking like maybe these things are closer than we know.
I'm at least able to be optimistic based on these rumors and the better foot forward they're putting. This is where I have to take back some of what they said, because I thought that the Angel Garza's match was on TV, but okay.
Yeah, it was only on TikTok. Yeah.
I'll take it. I mean,
Yeah.
And we did get two big wins out of the Lucha House Party. I mean, and I've said this off the air, but you really cannot stress enough how big a win, a clean win too, over the Miz, who is, a huge name in the industry, but also to the point that we mentioned, he's got the case right now, so he very well could be on the track to be one of the next heavyweight champions. So that's a big deal to have a guy that is 2 weeks ago was doing comedy spots get that win against him. So,
Yeah.
There you go. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have
the WWE.
Yep.
Yeah.
That pretty much sums it up. Some good progress, some still silly moments, and there you go. So, but of course, stay tuned every week as we report what happens on Raw and SmackDown. Later on, we will have a review of what happened on NXT, including Lucha House Party making an appearance on NXT. But before we do that, we're going to take you on the road to AEW Dark and Dynamite.
Yeah, first up we had AEW Dark. And the first match that was Lucha relevant was Rey Fénix versus Aaron Solo. And this was such a fun and solid match. This is exactly what we expect when we hear Fénix is in the ring. There was a great effort from commentary at really making this feel important, telling us how Solo was Jushin Thunder Liger's final American opponent on his farewell tour. How he would be getting a title shot if he beats Fénix, and Fénix wins the title on Dynamite from Kenny Omega. But despite Aaron Solo's best efforts, it just wasn't enough to come up against Rey Fénix. From the chops to there was an explosive springboard rolling soul off the bottom rope that was incredible, to the Fire Thunder Driver finisher. Everything Rey Fénix did was just so fluid and agile and perfect. It was like a highlight reel in a single match. Singles star Rey Fénix has always been slightly underrated in my opinion, but now he's finally getting the chance to show off that he's truly one of the best in the world. And the next Lucha relevant match we had Ivelisse and Diamante versus Kylan King and Tesha Price. And Ivelisse and Diamante are the best women's tag team in the world. Like, from their tandem teamwork to the intrinsic knowledge of Ivelisse distracting the ref immediately when Diamante went to interfere from ringside, everything they did was perfectly synchronized with each other, and everything they did worked towards their shared goal of winning the match and being the best. Like, there was no extra stuff, no grandstanding. I loved it. This was 4 short minutes. Diamante got the submission win on Kylan King. Like the height differential made it so cool. Great tag match.
Yeah.
I cannot recommend Ivelisse and Diamante enough. They're the women's tag team tournament winners, and there's a reason they get better every week on Dark.
And they are, to your point, they're also one of the few women's tag teams in the main product. Sorry. I'm sorry to
real tag teams.
They're an actual tag team. That's what I was getting at. They look like a tag team. They act like a tag team. They even have a tag team name they use from time to time, Las Sicarias.
Yeah.
So,
such a cool name too.
Right. The announcers need to remember that they can call them.
And that's the feminine version of Hitman. Like Sicario is your Hitman.
Yes.
And so that's such a cool name.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, and also, they have been vetted by us 3. They did win the Tag Team of the Year during our Lucha Central Weekly podcast awards. So, again, we're telling you here the truth. We're only telling you the straight facts here, and it's because they are a very solid, cohesive tag team, and truly one of the best, if not the best, women's tag team in pro wrestling.
I put them up against they're in the high caliber of the men's tag teams at this point.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. There's very few that can compete, but I truly believe they're the best women's tag team in the world right now. But our next match, speaking of one of the best in the world, was Thunder Rosa versus Ashley Vox. Oh, this was so good. Thunder Rosa went hard. There were some really hard shots. She was extremely aggressive. Her offense, she was always on the offense, always aggressive. She kept Ashley Vox on the defense. Rosa has a chip on her shoulder after Britt told her that she didn't belong in AEW. And so she decided to prove why she belongs in AEW. She gave us a fantastic match on Dark. She hit a big Thunder Driver for the win. I mean, very similar to Phoenix's finisher. She does it just as picture perfectly. So good. Such a great match. Really whets your appetite for what's coming with her and Britt Baker. Next up, we had Fuego versus Danny Limelight, and somebody had to win. This was a fun match before it ever started, because we have Fuego at 0-7, we have Danny Limelight at 0-5, so somebody had to get their first win, and it felt obvious going into the match that Danny would be our big winner. He's got the momentum, he's had the ability lately to stand out regardless of his losses, and every match he's had has just been incredible lately, especially his match with Phoenix. I mean, if you liked Phoenix, check out the match he had with Danny Lime. Oh, so good. And it really shows that Danny Limelight, I mean, he's on Dark. He may not be a name you know, but he's not an entry-level guy. He is ready for the main event. Yeah. Like, when you see him with Phoenix, like, you'll get goosebumps. It's so good. And he picked up his much-deserved first win with a modified Spanish Fly. This was a great match. This was a fun match, and it's a must-watch on Dark for me this week. It's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all big Danny Limelight fans on the show. Brendan and Miranda more than I am, because they knew him from the West Coast, so they had that time to kind of let the fire burn. But once you see it, like, it's so good. Like, he really is going to be a main event guy very soon.
Yeah, possibly very, very soon with the momentum they're giving him.
Yeah.
And he deserves it. Like, he's got the ability to back it up. So few have that immediate readiness, his charisma, his presence in the ring. Those are things that just can't be taught, and he has that. So it's exciting. And then we had a fatal four-way with Frankie Kazarian, Griff Garrison, Angelico, and Darius Martin. And I loved this match. There is something so special and unique and interesting about seeing tag team competitors wrestle in a singles match. More than anybody else, though, I felt it gave the advantage to Angelico, because he's had a big handful of singles matches lately on AEW.
True.
And truly, as the match started, it was amazing. Jack Evans got on the apron, and he castigated all the other competitors because they just didn't belong in the ring with Angelico. And then everything popped off. Like, it just went wild. And such a great match. Garrison really got the chance to shine in this match, maybe the best that he's done so far in AEW. But then he also ate the pin from Kazarian to end the match. But again, you know, somebody keep your eye on. He's not main event ready yet like Danny Limelight, but Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman are very quickly climbing. Brian Pillman dropped the Ohio Valley Wrestling title this week.
He did, yes.
And so, because of his AEW commitments, so those guys are on the way up too, I think. It'll be really interesting. And next up, we had Sammy versus Nakazawa. And this was a fun match, especially if you're familiar with Nakazawa and you enjoy the type of kind of fun and humorous matches that he brings to AEW. They're always really unique and interesting, and there's always baby oil. Sammy wins just like you knew he would, but afterwards is when it gets great. Like, it was a good match. It was a really good match. Fun match. Good match. But afterwards, it got really good. And he grabbed the mic after the match, and he said that his back hurt from carrying the entire show, and people started to boo. And he said, stop booing him, because we all know exactly how good he is and exactly how good we are not. It was so good. He talked about 2020 and how it sucked, 2021, and that he didn't have any New Year's resolutions because he doesn't need a change in the calendar to work hard. That's what Sammy knows. He's told us he was the best and that he can prove it to all of us, and then he lets us in on the secret that he's going to be a champion someday. And it was so good. Like, Sammy's right on all the points. Like, on every point, he was really correct. Like, he wasn't wrong about anything. And so, it's exciting. They're going to point to this promo when he becomes champion someday. They're going to show a clip of this, where he says, spoiler alert, I'm going to be a champion.
Yeah. I feel like it's this year.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. And like probably sooner rather than later in this year. So.
He's somebody else that, when AEW started, I was familiar with, I had seen him a few times in AAA. I was familiar with the name, but I didn't know a lot about Sammy Guevara. And he came out with the panda head and everything and really stood out. But a lot of times you hear, I've mentioned this before, you hear that phrase, the grab the brass ring in wrestling. Yeah. And if anybody grabbed that brass ring on AEW, it was Sammy Guevara. He has made the most of everything they've given him.
Yeah. A lesser performer would have gotten absolutely lost in all of the nonsense that happened with his matches over this last year.
Yeah, and he had a suspension and so many things, and he's really grown as a person and a competitor in the ring. Like, you can just see it in his promos and the way he talks and the delivery and everything. Like, there's a maturation of his style that I'm really enjoying as he's kind of developing into the main event. And speaking of a future main eventer, the match was number 5, Angels versus Serpentico, but we had future main eventer Brody Lee Jr., -1, come out before the match and taunt Luther before the bell rings. It was amazing.
So good.
And after the last match, and after, like, the match before the Fatal 4-Way, I'd mentioned the tag team wrestlers wrestling solo, and that is cool. But even though Serpentico was solo here, we still got to see Luther using Serpentico as a weapon, and that is always awesome.
Right?
He interfered for Serpentico with the referee. There was an amazing spot where the Angels and Serpentico brawled on Pretty Peter Avalon's heart-shaped bed while Luther kept the referee distracted and tied up in the ring. It was amazing. After the match, Angels won, obviously. After the match, Brody Lee Jr. came out again and made fun of Luther and made fun of him for having a third eye and for having his ball on his head. And it was fantastic. And that led us straight into Dynamite, New Year's Smash Night 1. And the first match we had was a four-man tag, Bucks and SCU versus TH2 and the Acclaimed. During the Christmas break, the holiday break, we had some fantastic work from SCU and TH2 on AEW Dark. The first week, the week of Christmas, there was SCU on Dr. Britt Baker's waiting room, and Kazarian announced that they'd break up if they lost another match on the 12/22 episode. And then they had a stellar main event match on the 12/29 episode between TH2 and SCU. After SCU won, the Acclaimed came out to help TH2 try to beat down SCU, but then the Bucks came out, and that set up the match we saw on Dynamite. And it was fantastic. It was exactly what you expect from these guys. Main event talent. I truly think that this is building to Bucks versus SCU more than TH2 versus SCU, because the Young Bucks have the titles. SCU are kind of on this, much like Ric Flair, he had, if I lose, I'm gone. They have, if we lose, we break up. I think that at that point we'll see Christopher Daniels retire. But it's interesting to see how this all goes. I don't know. I really loved what they were doing with TH2. I thought that was some of the best work that the tag team division had to offer, was SCU versus TH2. So I might be a little biased, but it was, this was a great match. I just want more SCU versus TH2. Again, we got Matt Jackson. He won the match for the Bucks with a big super kick, and then the Meltzer driver onto Jack Evans. And that's the other thing. Like, we see AEW right now being higher on Angelico than Jack Evans for whatever reason, and it'll be interesting to see what we get from these guys. And then the main part of the night, like what we really came to discuss. We had the AEW World Heavyweight Championship title match between Kenny Omega and Rey Fénix. And this was fantastic. We're like a week into the new year, and we've already got a match of the year contender. And it was just fabulous. I don't know that modern TV audiences, like on TV, not pay-per-view, have ever gotten to see two such evenly matched wrestlers have such a long and dynamic and even match. It was just incredible watching the match evolve, too. They started out with smaller strikes, but as it went on and more time went on, they had to dig deeper and deeper and do bigger and bigger moves, which introduced a lot more risk but offered greater rewards. We saw... He did a backflip maneuver onto Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega was able to catch him, and that led into driver, I believe two one-winged angels, and then the V-trigger. He got the 3 count, but right as Aubrey counted 3, Fénix raised his arm, got the shoulder up off the mat. Aubrey didn't see it, but it was interesting. I don't know if it was muscle memory, but he was able to get the shoulder off the mat. So I hope that sets up something in the future, and it very well may, because we get a clip of Kingston and the family backstage just going medieval on Pentagon and Pac. And then the Good Brothers come out to join Kenny, like from AEW, or from Impact rather. They run in, make their AEW debut. It was crazy. And they're, beating up on Fénix, give him a hard time. So Moxley comes out to make the save and hits Kenny across the chest and shoulder with a barbed wire bat. Blood is running down Kenny's arm and chest. Things blow up. The Super Elite get the advantage, and they just start to beat the tar out of Jon Moxley. There was like 10 bat strikes with the barbed wire bat. And then Pillman and Garrison foolishly decided to jump the barrier to help Moxley, and they got to take a beating too. So finally, the Young Bucks come out. Everybody thought they were going to help, but they super kicked Pillman and Garrison, and then the Super Elite two-sweeted the Bucks, and the band got back together right before our very eyes on AEW Dynamite. An incredible match, an incredible ending. You've no doubt seen the clip or the pictures of the reformation of the club, the Bullet Club. It's just so exciting.
Can't say that. Lawyers will come after you.
Yeah.
Yes. The Bullet Club is back, which is crazy. I mean, it is the Bullet Club.
Yeah.
It is. This is the Bullet Club we remember, and it's been years since these guys were all 5 in a ring together like that.
Yep.
So it's very exciting. This was the era of the Bullet Club when they were cool, before it was played out, before everybody had a Bullet Club shirt. So it's exciting. And also we got some news about Night 2. Originally we had been promised Dr. Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa, that they were going to have their match at Night 2. But that was quietly replaced with an NWA Women's World Championship match between Serena Deeb and Ty Conti. And now Dr. Britt Baker is going to have a new episode of The Waiting Room with Cody. And so hopefully whatever they had planned was just too good for TV, and they're holding it off for pay-per-view. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa. That's my favorite feud on TV right now. And so hopefully we get some more of that.
So I had to, unfortunately, the way that you phrased that, my brain took up the challenge. The last match that I can think of with 2 evenly matched guys that was on free TV, that was just on that level of amazing, was Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat back when they were giving away, that match for free on TBS.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that'll tell you how special that match is. I had to dig all the way back to the 80s.
Yeah, like I couldn't think of anything. Like when you mentioned that, like I remembered that match. And so like, yeah, but like, holy cow. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen anything that's good on TV.
Yep.
And also in some other news, quick news, the Lucha Bros quietly re-signed with AEW in August, and it was released this week. And so they will be staying with AEW through at least August 2021, when they will reevaluate their contract.
absolutely cool news.
Yeah.
And it's an AEW contract, so if we ever get to having indie shows, that means they're still able to do indie shows as long as they don't conflict with AEW shows. So we could see them all over the place again if the world allows.
Yes.
Very exciting.
Well, speaking of the Lucha Brothers, we got something else to let our listeners know about, and that's some new products from Masked Republic. As we mentioned late last year, Masked Republic Legends of Lucha Libre products are available at HotTopic.com and also selected Hot Topic stores. And one of the most recent new additions is several masks that are now exclusive as part of Masked Republic. So make sure you check out Masked Republic on HotTopic.com and selected Hot Topic stores to view lots of great T-shirts, of course, a very extensive line for Rey Fenix and Pentagon, of course, some really classic Legends of Lucha Libre T-shirts. The Psychosis shirt is still one of the coolest things out there.
Good.
There's a Powerpuff Girls inspired Los Cadets del Espacio with Solar and Super Astro and Ultraman that is amazing. I had to have it as soon as I saw it. And the other nice thing is if you prefer the over-the-ear masks, like the smaller, thinner masks, a lot of those are easier for people to breathe with. That's what they offer through Hot Topic. And they have the screen-printed logo. They're also a lot easier to run through your washing machine in like a delicates bag. So if you're one of those people that doesn't like to hand wash things, you know, maybe check out HotTopic.com, type in Masked Republic, and they'll show you all, or Legends of Lucha Libre, either way, and it'll show you all the products.
They're priced, those masks are priced well enough too that you can have 2 or 3 of them so that you can watch one while you're wearing another one, and nobody will ever know.
Yeah. And actually, right now, Hot Topic is running an exclusive 20% off on all of these items. So you can get 20% off of the masks and T-shirts right now. So make sure you check out HotTopic.com to save yourself a little bit of money. But I know, Brendan, you have actually an exclusive story, too, about a new partnership that Masked Republic has.
Yes, Masked Republic they announced it on Twitter this week. They are teaming up with an animation studio based out of Mexico called Demente. They are going to be working on a series of lucha adjacent and lucha themed children's animations to start with. I believe a statement that Ruben made. They are going to, I believe it. I keep finding the wrong quotes here. To develop they're going to be developing their first and original series inspired by the world of Lucha Libre. This is a direct quote from Masked Republic's Ruben Zamora that he gave to the press. Our dedication to sharing the wonders of real-life Mexican superheroes, our luchadors, with the rest of the world requires having the right partners with whom a deep understanding of the sport's cultural significance so that our stories can be unlike any which have been told before and yet remain authentic at the same time. So they are, that is the stated goal from Masked Republic as to what they want to do.
So cool.
In another coverage of Lucha Central, I believe it was, they mentioned that they're going to have 5 children's shows in the first wave. So very exciting stuff. We reached out to our as they like to say on the Masked Mats and Mayhem show, our overlord Kevin Kleinrock. He was going to give us a statement today, but he was too busy failing to make a grilled cheese sandwich, and and he will get back to us. So we should have an exclusive statement on this if I didn't just ruin it by making the grilled cheese joke.
You may have, yeah. We actually, this could be the very last episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a fun ride.
The animation studio also, if you're familiar with the Boing drinks, like if you've watched a lot of Boing drinks. They make those commercials, on the Spanish-speaking channels where the fruit comes to life. They can do really unique, interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I'm excited. They think outside the box.
An easy way for a fan to be able to catch that then would be to watch a lot of AAA from about 5 years ago, because Boeing was a really, really big sponsor, and they would have an animated entrance, or they'd have an animated sequence during entrances a lot of the time. So you can, that's how I learned what Boeing was.
Yes. And this information, I believe, is available on luchacentral.com.
Yes, the Lucha Central has the main story that I was citing from here. Ruben's statements have been run around on various other places as well, but Lucha Central broke the story first. There is a big story there, and as I mentioned, we will have more exclusive statements next week. Or a cheese sandwich.
Yeah.
Or one of those. Or Brendan's going to be replaced by a grilled cheese sandwich. And that's some petty level stuff that I just...
Look, Kevin makes it. It won't be a grilled cheese. It'll be toast with cheese melted in it.
Yeah. We might have gotten by with just one joke, but
I know. Now we're all accomplished.
Now we're all in it.
Now we're all deep in it. So, there we go. Yes. luchacentral.com is where this information can be found, plus reviews of the shows that we've talked about, including the show I'm going to be talking about next, NXT. And yes, there's been a surge in Lucha Libre content in NXT over the past few weeks. I'm going to popcorn around a little bit out of order, bringing up some of the kind of smaller but notable news items from this week's NXT, which was NXT New Year's Evil, the very first show of 2020, with overall fantastic show and some interesting teasers and pieces of information coming up in the future. One of them, we actually saw this a few weeks ago, Mercedes Martinez is back in NXT. And we're all thanking God a little bit for that.
Where she belongs,
yes. And so she cut a promo, interestingly looking like challenging Io Shirai, and looking at setting her eyes on the NXT Women's Champions. So teaser for that. And Mercedes did kind of make a special appearance over the holiday break on NXT. So we are seeing her back on that women's roster, and apparently possibly a program with Io Shirai, which I think would be fantastic, considering we've kind of seen her with some of the same competitors for quite some time. So having someone new, at least someone new that she hasn't faced in the scene, very interesting. Also, another note is that it was announced that we are going to get the Dusty Tag Team Classic. But this interesting spin is that we're going to get a men and a women's tournament.
Yes.
We're going to get both. Now, for the men's side, several teams have been announced, including Legado de Fantasma, Joaquin Wilde, and Raul Mendoza will be included on the men's side. There have not been any competitors announced for the women's yet, but this is very big news for NXT. I know this fuels a lot of stuff as far as, the Wednesday Night Wars and AEW and, Dynamite and NXT, but when you think, again, I've said it before, I say it again, the best women's division in all of wrestling is in NXT. The fact that they have some of the best women in the entire world on top of now putting together a women's tag tournament is fascinating. On top of the fact that they do have a women's tag team championship. So guess what could be a possible prize for the winners? Not just a cup, but fingers crossed, hopefully a women's tag title opportunity. It only makes sense.
And a nice way to introduce women from the NXT roster to the main roster audience without having to necessarily call them up.
So interesting developments in NXT. And that's just some of the beginning. We going into some of the matches on the show started off with a returning Karrion Kross, even though he's already had a squash match prior to that. But this is feeling like a real return of Karrion Kross versus Damian Priest. And these men went hard at it, starting on the outside of the ring multiple times. Damian Priest continuing to use those long legs to create space between him and Karrion, but also he has some very strong kicking power. But I don't know if you've ever seen Karrion Kross, but that man is just a beast. So, I mean, as hard as Damian Priest can kick, it didn't seem to make any impact on Karrion Kross. However, as tall as Damian Priest is, he does a fancy, amazing spinning heel kick over the top rope onto Karrion Kross. So a man of his height and his size, surprisingly, even though he uses a lot more kicks in his arsenal, can actually fly, every so often. However, as I think expected, Karrion Kross hit the Saito suplex and a forearm to the back of the head for the win. So there was also some speculation happening this week that Damian Priest at one point was possibly considered going to either Raw or SmackDown, and this may have been one of his last matches in NXT. That has not been confirmed, but that speculation has been out there for this week. So if we don't see Damian Priest anytime soon, it may be because there's bigger plans for him. Yep. After that, we had Santos Escobar versus Gran Metalik, and for those of you who haven't watched NXT in a few weeks, you wondered, how did that happen? Well, Lucha House Party made an appearance on last week's NXT, which was very much a surprise. Absolutely. In which, Santos Escobar and Legado del Fantasma came out really much claiming that ownership of Lucha Libre. But of course, Lucha House Party came out and said that Lucha Libre is for everyone. So I loved hearing these kind of competing views of Lucha Libre, but also these two sides of it. And again, NXT has done a beautiful job, I think, in the representation of Lucha Libre and their approach to it, which has been way less comical. So in that, we had Lucha House Party versus Legado del Fantasma, specifically Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza. In that, Gran Metalik got the win. And because of that, he earned an opportunity to face Santos Escobar for the Cruiserweight Championship. And so, though this was a short match, first off, just a shout out to a friend of the show, Lince Dorado, with his Power Rangers inspired gear. Always gets me. I love it. And then from there, really the emphasis on commentary was, Santos Escobar is the emperor of Lucha Libre, and that's also what he calls himself too. So this match was set up very beautifully. A lot of high flying from Gran Metalik. He had a springboard tope over the top rope, an amazing top rope Hurricane Rana. Lots of flying and flashy moves from Gran Metalik. Not so much from Santos. He went a little bit more on the technical side. But Santos hit the Phantom Driver for the win, and he is still your Cruiserweight champion. We had kind of a squash match, but a good turnout by Katrina Cortez, who's really the only masked luchadora on the NXT roster, against the returning Xia Li. She was pretty much out there to feed Xia Li as kind of a comeback for her. But the good news is the fact that she is on NXT now means that we may start to see her again in the future. We started to see that a lot from other females on the roster before, so we could see it again. Again, I'm going to skip around a little bit. We had Shotzi Blackheart and Kushida teaming up against Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano, with Shotzi and Kushida getting the win, continuing that storyline. Though this was not the main event, we're labeling it our main event. And that is the last woman standing match between Rhea Ripley and Raquel Gonzalez.
Yes.
And so this was the second of their match, the first one happening at NXT Halloween Havoc. And I mean, really, when you look at some of the highlights, the clips that have been on social media, it started off aggressive from the bell. The scene where Rhea handcuffs Raquel to the fence, to the chain link, and Raquel rips off the cuffs from the fence is insane. And they tore up the Capitol Event Center. There was also a great spot where Raquel rammed the steel steps into Rhea. And also, this is where, the This Is Awesome chants hit when Rhea sent Raquel through a glass door, hit her so hard that the glass as part of the door broke. Going through tables and through the stage. Raquel, kind of not surprisingly, I've been kind of leaning towards this, that Raquel was going to win this for some time. Raquel got the win after slamming Rhea Ripley through the stage and beating the 10 count, becoming the last woman standing. There's also been speculation that this was possibly Rhea's last match in NXT as well, making room for her to go up to either Raw or SmackDown. I'm still putting money that we're getting a rubber match. We have to get a rubber match. We need a rubber match.
Yes.
Getting a third
We
one.
demand it.
We demand it. I don't have a Twitter, but I'll make Brendan tweet about it.
Oh, that's not hard. Getting me to tweet about wanting more Raquel Gonzalez matches, that's not a hard, big ask right there.
Well, I mean, it seems like Raquel, again, has continued to climb up the women's roster. Back at War Games, got the pin over champion Io Shirai. So, I mean, I know we would not be surprised if she ends up facing Io Shirai at any point for the NXT Women's Championship. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up becoming NXT Women's Champion, especially if, now she's going to be the big woman on campus, if Rhea ends up moving to Raw or SmackDown. But again, I feel like there's still more with this story to tell. If Rhea has a win and Raquel has a win, you need the rubber match. It's just science.
You gotta have the tiebreaker.
Yes.
You got to have the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, not science, but wrestling science. So, yes. But yeah, lots of Lucha content happening this week. We don't know. I mean, as Dusty mentioned, Lucha House Parties had some successful matches on Raw, on SmackDown. I'm sorry, it was Raw.
Yes.
But
They used to be SmackDown.
Yeah, it gets so confusing. And they showed up on NXT unexpectedly.
Yeah.
So again, seeing
cool.
more Lucha House Party on different WWE products. And this is a point where I'm not mad with storyline continuity not quite making sense. With a product like Lucha House Party, I think it's okay if they're on different products because they're also presented very differently. On Raw, it is much more of a comedy, kind of funny ha-ha duo. But if you do continue a program with Legado de Fantasma, it has a much more serious tone to it because it is almost these two sides of Lucha. Yeah. Whereas one feels like Lucha is ours, we're making it more exclusive, no one else can do Lucha, whereas Lucha House Party is more inclusive. And they're just more that Lucha could be for everyone, and kind of the two sides that I think historically Lucha Libre has had this pull and tug, as something a very elite and exclusive art form of wrestling and very, based in family and tradition. While in other, it's almost a celebration of wrestling and fun and energetic and exciting. So very philosophical and deep, another subject for another day. But I wouldn't be mad if I see Lucha House Party on both products because they are presented very differently. So going back to what Dusty said, it could be the beginning of seeing more Lucha Libre on different platforms, on television. So that is this week in NXT. Up next, Dusty, you have some updated information on AAA, including something Brendan teased about earlier in the show.
We do. A lot of people have been curious about the lawsuit, the LLFMV versus AAA lawsuit. Well, it kind of has a reason now. We'd all wondered where it came from. But it turns out that the Rey Netwerk was ending, and that was kind of the impetus behind the lawsuit. It was a vanity project for Robert Rodriguez. It was given to him as part of a, like an inclusiveness, or, for all different cultures, through Time Warner. And it was just a vanity project. And so nobody really thought to look at the books. And when they did, they realized, oh, we own everything AAA does in America. And so,
that's a fun surprise.
Yeah, just a nice little surprise for El Rey. So that's what the whole thing is about. And it's not so much about these guys necessarily wanting to get paid, which it absolutely is. They want to get paid. But at the same time, they're more about wanting to sell AAA the piece they have. And so it may not be as serious as we originally considered it to be. Or it could be more serious. It's just so up in the air right now that everything is tied up and the network ending. But of course, to end the network, they had to balance the books. This was on the books. They realized they owned it and hadn't been getting any payments. So we'll see what comes of it. I truly think that we will see AAA buy them out and maybe bring in Marvel or possibly Funko as an investor. I know that Masked Republic had tried to work with Funko at one time and were turned down because of their association with WWE. That was like an exclusivity. That's why they ended the New Japan association with Funko, was because WWE got an exclusive contract. But now that Funko and Marvel are kind of collaborating on these the Marvel Funko Lucha Libre line, the Funko Pops, there's also plush wrestling buddies. If you haven't seen those, they are amazing. They're not quite as big as the original Wrestling Buddies, but they're pretty close. There's just a lot going on there, and it's affecting the momentum of AAA. They had their hottest Triple Mania in years. Everybody was home this year, so even though it was COVID, more people than ever saw it. Everybody was talking about that Kenny Omega match, and it behooves them to find the money to pay off the lawsuit. And so I think we could possibly see that come from Marvel and or Funko. It would be interesting to see Funko involved because, as a lot of us know, it's really hard to find Lucha Libre toys. And if Funko got involved, they would have that intrinsic motivation to merchandise. And, I mean, like, I've never understood why Lucha masks aren't more merchandise than they are, because kids love them, people love them, and they're great. And I think that we could finally see that through all of this. It'll be exciting to see what comes of it, but that's my speculation, is that AAA tries to get one of the major companies involved with a cash infusion to pay off the lawsuit. But we'll see what happens. In other AAA news, the Lucha Bros are no longer AAA exclusive in Mexico. Early last year, Penta and Phoenix had done some interviews, and they mentioned that they were working exclusively with AAA in Mexico for all of 2020, both as singles competitors and as a tag team. Whether this had any connection to AEW and their kind of connection to AAA at the time is unknown, in early 2020, late 2019, but it's easy to hypothesize that may have been part of the deal. He was Pentagon Jr. instead of Penta El0M and AEW, and so there were just several little clues there that perhaps the exclusivity was part of the deal with AEW and that's where the cross-promotion worked. But this week we had Penta teaming with Io del Canis Lupus for AULL Lucha Libre and Talal Ne Pantala, which is a sign that contract is ended. But in addition, it shows that AAA wasn't able to retain that exclusivity. And whether that was due to financial reasons regarding the lawsuit and their limited promotional abilities internationally because of the lawsuit, or whether it was due to some kind of deal between AEW and AAA ending, nobody really knows, but it's very interesting. Something we'll be keeping our eye on in the weeks and maybe months ahead as this lawsuit plays out and AAA remains limited to Mexico. So we'll keep you updated on the show with the newest information as soon as we get it.
Fantastic. And again, luchacentral.com if you'd like to know more information on what's happening with AAA, but also on luchacentral.com, and a special part of luchacentral.com that we bring to you every week is This Week in Lucha Libre History.
Yes, that's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera from Lucha Central Network. He has amazing information, birth dates, anniversaries, videos, all kinds of stuff, and it's all about Lucha Libre, and that's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. And while you're there, if you're a Spanish speaker, check out Pep Carrera's podcast. He does the Espanol version of this very show. He has his own sources, his own interviews and everything. It's pretty good. My comprehension isn't the best. It's very good, and I listen to it as often as I can. I learn a lot. It's an entertaining show. But back to this week in Lucha history. This week I chose January the 4th, 1997, when Jushin Thunder Liger won the J Crown after beating Legends of Lucha Libre superstar Ultimo Dragon at the NJPW Wrestling World at the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, Japan. So if you have seen, I know everybody's seen that iconic photo of Ultimo Dragon holding up 10 belts all at once. Well, 8 of those titles are what makes up the J Crown. It was a short-lived unification of several limited weight class, light heavyweight, that type of weight class titles between 8 different promotions. And at this point in history, Ultimo Dragon had already been crowned the J Crown champion in a tournament. And in addition to that, he was the NWA World Middleweight Champion, which he had won at a wrestling and romance tournament in Tokyo in 1994. And then he became the WCW World Cruiserweight Champion after he beat Dean Malenko at WCW Starrcade 1996, like 1 week before this match. Before we jump into this match, it's also worth noting that this Tokyo Dome show was also the debut of the Super Liger character. He was intended to be an arch-enemy counterpart to Jushin Liger, the way that Black Tiger is to Tiger Mask, and was played by Chris Jericho, but it didn't go so well. He couldn't see in the mask. It just didn't work out. Chris Jericho is awesome. Chris Jericho as Super Liger was not so awesome. But it's definitely worth checking out just to see Chris in a mask. His the blonde hair, the lucha style. He was right out of Mexico at the time. Fantastic. But this was a great match. This is such an impressive and big match feel. The dynamic between Jushin Liger and Ultimo Dragon is sublime. They had wrestled many times before this, and they have the utmost respect for each other. They're friends, and it really shows in the ring. If you love the Japanese flavor of lucha, or that lucha-influenced Japanese-style wrestling, this match is for you. If you've ever seen the iconic Ultimo Dragon entrance of the 10 girls in swimsuits carrying the belts as he comes out as part of his entrance, Kenny has followed that, Kenny Omega with the Cleaner Girls. Very similar thing. I feel it was influenced by Ultimo Dragon on this show. You can see where it started. Jushin is in his very, very rare gold gear, but they were trying to kind of set off the Chris Jericho's Super Liger was silver and white. Jushin was gold and white. It was very cool look, though. Ultimo Dragon is the classic Ultimo that we all loved growing up and are still wowed by today. And they go for 20 of the most dynamic and pedal mashed to the floor minutes you can imagine. Like when you hear Jushin Liger versus Ultimo Dragon for 8 different championship belts, this is the match that you pictured. This is one of the best matches I've ever seen, truly, and it's my favorite match that I've gotten to cover so far for this week in Lucha Libre. I had a video of this that I had tape traded for in 1999, and you really have to see the whole show, but this match was just hugely influential to my wrestling fandom growing up, and the story between them, again, much like Kenny and Phoenix, they were so evenly matched. They both wanted to be the best in the world, and everything they do is so natural and fluid and perfect. Everybody should check this match out. Brendan, what did you pick this week?
I actually had January the 4th, but mine was from 2011, where La Sombra, who many of you might know as Andrade, and Mascara Dorada, who hopefully you will soon know as Grand Metalik if you didn't already, defeated Jushin Thunder Liger and Hector Garza in a tag team match at Wrestle Kingdom 5 from New Japan Pro Wrestling in the Tokyo Dome. So this has all kinds of elements of just epicness to it. It's the early days of Wrestle Kingdom, but it was really when it was the grand show. Like everybody looked forward to Wrestle Kingdom at this point. Mm-hmm. You have a very young but really comfortable in his own skin Andrade. You have Mascara Dorada, who was on the rise at that time. You have Hector Garza, who is, I mean, if you're listening to this show and you don't know who Hector Garza is, go to This Week in Lucha Libre. There's
Yes.
lots of stuff for you.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah.
Angel Garza is heavily influenced by Hector Garza. The
Yeah.
old hairdo was Hector Garza. The mustache, I mean, like, it's all Hector Garza. He used to be Garza Jr. on the
Yes.
circuit. Like, you cannot understate his influence and importance because of Angel Garza's placement on the main roster now. Like, he had main roster influence, and it's incredible.
Yeah, no, and Jushin Thunder Liger, who we were just talking about having epic matches, with the Lucha Libre style. So this is in New Japan, but it is that exact style Dusty was just talking about too, where it's the Lucha Libre New Japan hybrid, which, even if you're not a fan of it all the time, having a refreshing version, having a version of that, which is the best version of that, like this match tended to be, is a very refreshing, like, palate cleanser or
such
palate
a great
change.
match.
Yeah.
This was the match of the day, so I saw it that day too. Like, it was so good.
So as I discovered when we were prepping for this, it is currently blocked on the one video that I found of it on YouTube that was sent to me was blocked. There are other ways around. If you have the New Japan subscription service, you can get that. And it sounds like Dusty was able to watch the match of the day through Lucha Central. So the more reason to go to Lucha Central.
It was up at least on the 4th. I haven't checked since then, but I did a little Googling around. It's on Facebook. You can find it if you search.
Yeah. If you want to go into the deeper waters, there are ways to get it for sure. But we're definitely sticking with the, I mean, after all of those grilled cheese jokes, we don't really want to, like.
Yeah, you don't really. Come on. I'm learning my lesson. I'm not getting dragged into this.
Speaking of that, Miranda, what did you have for this week?
So I picked January 10th, 2016. And this is actually a moment from Lucha Underground. This was when Chavo Guerrero won the Lucha Underground Gift of the Gods Championship in a 7-way match after beating Aerostar, El Sinestro de la Muerte, Joey Ryan, Sexy Star, Tejano Jr., and the Mac, also known as Willie Mac, in a 7-way match. This is listed as episode 56 of Lucha Underground. And the reason that I picked this is that the match itself was very fun to watch. Again, this was on television, so it was fairly short, but this stood out to me because this is one of the very few times, this for me, one of the first times in memory that a Lucha Underground match has been listed on this week in this day in Lucha Libre history. And we talk about it so much through, those who are still in wrestling and other promotions, the impact of Lucha Underground in presenting Lucha Libre to an American audience, the presentation and cinematic quality of matches, all of that. I mean, we talk about it and its presence and legacy constantly, even after the show. And at this point, the network itself is gone. So to have this be one of the first times to see a Lucha Underground match on This Week in Lucha Libre history really stood out to me. The match itself is very fun. I mean, it is a 7-way match, so you had to have a lot of strategic planning in spots, but there was a really great sequence between the Mac and Tejano Jr., both very big men, but also very agile. And so I love to see an equal kind of matchup in styles and sizes. Also, I mean, that was one of the things about Lucha Underground was that the presence of intergender wrestling. So the presence of Sexy Star throughout this match was really something that was played up on commentary. And she had a beautiful crossbody off the top rope into a whole group of people. And the interesting part about this is, Chavo winning the Gift of to the Gods Championship, and through nefarious means. Chavo was going through a heel stint at this time, and Brian Cage made an appearance to help Chavo win by doing a suplex, I believe, onto Joey Ryan and dragging Chavo for the win, the pin on Joey Ryan. So that too, I mean, the storyline aspect of this really also too is very interesting. But again, I mean, I think that was one of the cooler things about Lucha Underground is their presentation of multi-person matches. They were able to really plan spots very well, understanding of camera angles, but also have moments where you had great matchups in the ring, like the Mac and Tejano. You also had the same thing with kind of a partnership with the Mac and Sexy Star. Aerostar and El Sinestro had some great moments in that match as well. So all of it, I think, it's just palatable in general, not only for a Lucha Libre fan, but a pro wrestling fan or someone who's just looking for something entertaining. And that, again, highlights all the things that a lot of fans talk about in the history and legacy of Lucha Underground. But this match in particular was such a great example of the matches, the fantastic matches and work that Lucha Underground consistently had, and also what made it very unique as a product. And so that was my pick for this week in Lucha Libre history.
And just to throw that out there, we can Mass Mats and Mayhem is doing reviews of all of the shows of Lucha Underground, and
Yes.
they are restarting in the near future. I didn't save I believe that's next Tuesday?
Yes, yeah, they're going to be on 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday. Masks, Mats, and Mayhem is our resident show that talks and covers everything related to Lucha Underground, reviewing past episodes, kind of talking about, again, the impact of the wrestlers who appeared on Lucha Underground and their influence in pro wrestling to this day. And just lots of great insights too, as they actually were there for a lot of these live tapings, to some of that firsthand experience of physically being there. So Masks, Mats, and Mayhem, that's part of the Lucha Central podcast network. And you can find them also on Lucha Central's YouTube page. They also release their video recordings of their podcast. And that's every week at 7 Pacific Standard Time on Tuesdays.
Awesome. It's really good stuff too. It's a very entertaining show.
Yeah. Very true. I mean, we talked about already, you can find This Week in Lucha Libre on luchacentral.com. You can find Masks, Mats, and Mayhem on luchacentral.com. You can find this show, the Lucha Central Weekly podcast, on luchacentral.com. But I'm wondering, what else can people find on luchacentral.com? Brendan, can you, give us a hint?
All right. If you're digging for that, if you're listening to this show and you haven't been to luchacentral.com, especially after all of the times that we've mentioned it just in this show alone, it's really time to do it. luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of your top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And on top of all of this, it's free. So luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Yes. And I know we talked a lot about, especially, this week, if you have to be hiding under a rock to not know that Wrestle Kingdom happened this week. So Dusty is here to provide some New Japan updates.
Yes. Yes, yeah. Our most significant news from night one of Wrestle Kingdom, and if you didn't stay up for it, you missed a really good Wrestle Kingdom, but you probably got some really good sleep because it was on for like 6 hours in the middle of the night the first night, and like 5 hours the second night. I was up till 7 a.m. my time, yeah, but it was awesome. And our first night one, we had Hiromu Takahashi defeating El Fantasma in what I believe is a first-time matchup on night one for the number one contendership for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. That was very exciting. Fantastic match. We also, in the main event, we had Los Ingobernables de Japan star Naito losing to Kota Ibushi, who has finally fulfilled his golden destiny of being IWGP champion. It was an incredible moment, incredible match, loved it. Great night. The second night, it started with a provisional King of Pro Wrestling title, like a fatal four-way, between Bad Luck Fale, Chase Owens, Toru Yano, and Bushi, who is, wears a mask, wrestles the Japanese lucha style. But unfortunately, Bushi lost out. He was the one that was pinned. Toru Yano won, and he is the provisional King of Pro Wrestling 2021. Later in the evening, we had El Desperado, again, masked the lucha style, and Kanemaru retaining the IWGP Junior Tag titles against Taguchi and Master Wato. There were only two title defenses that were successful, and unfortunately, and very sad news for those of us on the show, the second one was Shingo Tagaki, who somehow beat Jeff Cobb to retain the Never Openweight Championship. But at New Year's Dash, Jeff Cobb and Will Ospreay's Empire, they really had a great night. Things are looking up for them, so I think as a faction, they're very quickly on the way up despite his loss personally on the second night. But
that match
match
was a fantastic match.
Oh, such a great match.
Yeah.
Like, there was no shame in losing that match. I mean, most people don't look that good when they win, and Jeff Cobb not only looked that good, but he made it look like anybody could do it. And
Wow.
if you've ever tried to run the ropes, Jeff Cobb is just really, really good. I don't know how he makes it look that effortless, but he is a consummate performer, and he is on his way to that main event level. I will be shocked if we don't see him in the heavyweight title picture for New Japan within the next 2 years.
And that, I mean, just to bring up Miranda's point again, this is another Lucha Underground star that is
Yes, he was the monster Matanza.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. Huh? Man. Well, thank you, Dusty, for that New Japan update. Up next, we're circling around to Impact Wrestling, and they had a break towards the end of the year, but they are coming back in style. They have two events happening in the next 2 weeks. This Saturday on the Impact Plus app, we are going to get Genesis, the first event of the year, and this card is fairly stacked. We have the Super X Cup tournament that will be happening, and those matchups real quick will encompass Crazy Steve versus Trey Lamar, Casey Navarro versus Blake Christian, Davari versus Cousin Jake, and Ace Austin versus Suicide. So anyone who is a big fan of the X division, this X Cup tournament is going to be really entertaining. And also, this has been a building program for months now. We have an I Quit match versus Moose versus Willie Mack. And so this is going to be very intense. The intensity and change that we've seen in Moose over the past few months has been something else. But Willie Mack, do not count out Willie Mack, period, ever, done. So those are just my thoughts. That's not necessarily the news. I mean, it can be the news because I feel like that is the fact, but it is what it is. But yes, that is this Saturday, January 9th on the Impact Plus app. And then next week, we have Hard to Kill. And for those of you who may not, again, you got to be living under a rock to know the big crossover. Kenny Omega has been making frequent appearances on Impact Wrestling, as part of, his partnership with Don Callis, who is a senior vice president over at Impact Wrestling right now. And of course, he has a few friends, or should I say brothers, that he knows over there, the Good Brothers. And it has been announced that we're going to see Kenny Omega, Good Brothers team up against Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns at Hard to Kill. So they're continuing with that this week. Of course, we saw the Good Brothers make their first appearance on AEW television. So the crossover is fully realized now that we've had Impact talent on AEW. And we have another week of buildup for that as well. So again, one of the biggest news stories of 2020 continuing on at Hard to Kill, but also some recent developments in the card for Hard to Kill. We are going to have a triple threat for the X Division Championship. Current champion Manik will face Rohit Raju and Chris Bay. And so, again, X Division Championship material here in the whole sense between the three. But of course, the entertainment value of this is going to be very high. You're going to see some great action in this match. And so it's going to be, probably one of the matches to watch. But don't count them out, because we have the Knockouts Championship also being defended. Deonna Purrazzo is going to be facing La Güera Loca, Taya
so
Valkyrie.
excited.
And this is just very exciting. Taya lost the championship early back in 2020 against Jordan Grace, and really hasn't been in the title picture for quite some time. So to see her facing against Deonna Purrazzo, who is fantastic in her own right, but again, we have very kind of different styles in this impending match. Some of this came from the end of the year awards, kind of trash talk. Deonna Purrazzo won not only Knockout of the Year, but Wrestler of the Year. Knockout of the Year for 2019 was Taya Valkyrie. So she took some kind of offense to it, and also nominated for the award for 2020. And again, Deonna Purrazzo has not faced someone like Taya Valkyrie in her time at Impact Wrestling. And Taya is making it a point that she wants to become Knockouts champion again and start the era of La Güera.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's so good.
Put it on a shirt and sell it, because I'll take it. So we are seeing, and we've talked about this even offline, seeing a change in Taya Valkyrie is very refreshing. She spent, a good portion of 2020 in more of a comedic role with Wrestle House, with Rosemary, with Johnny Bravo. But now we're seeing, we're seeing La Güera Loca. We are seeing, the Taya of not so much old, but just, of turn. And so, very interested to see how this match will go. I think it will be fantastic, and hopefully set the bar for the Knockouts division in 2021. So those are a few of your lucha related matches coming up at Hard to Kill January 16th. It will definitely be something to watch out for. And with that, we're going to be moving on to MLW. Kings of Colosseum happened this past Wednesday. One of the big headliners coming out of Kings of Colosseum is from the World Middleweight Championship match, Myron Reed versus Leo Rush. We have a new World Middleweight Champion in Leo Rush, beating Myron Reed, who had the belt for 400 plus days, using the signature frog splash for the win. And so Leo Rush is your new MLW Middleweight Champion. And Leo Rush, we talked about his appearance in Triple Mania and possible long-term appearances or more frequent appearances in AAA. Now he is the new MLW Middleweight Champion. We saw him in the New Japan Cup, all of that. He's been everywhere in just the past few months. So looks like 2021 is going to shape up to be a very good year for Leo Rush. Also some other news coming out of Kings of Colosseum. Selena De La Renta announced that she's going to be serving as executive producer for next week's episode of Fusion. And as you know, as part of her contract with MLW, she gets to episodes a year. So, you know, when Selena De La Renta is executive producer for a night, things are gonna, shape up.
Spicy.
Yeah, she's gonna bring the heat.
She's gonna bring the heat. And Selena's been in the MLW news lately. I mean, it's still been well known that she was pretty much paid off by Contra Unit to get into some of the MLW secrets. But also, I mean, she is the force behind the returning Mil Muertes. I mean, it sounds like they're gone Mil Muertes, but she is bringing that witchcraft back to bring Mil Muertes to MLW. Maybe we see him next week on Fusion. Maybe we continue to see teasers. Who knows? But where Selena De La Renta goes, trouble is usually following, not long after. But some also big news coming out for next week's edition of MLW Fusion is that MLW management executives have finally responded to the many videos and demands of the Park family, and LA Park and Hijo del LA Park will finally be getting an opportunity to face the Von Erichs, Marshall and Eric, for the MLW tag team titles. That will be occurring on next week's episode of Fusion, January 13th. So expect a very great match between LA Park and Hijo de LA Park versus the Von Erichs. And this is something they've been talking about for quite some time, for many months, ever since we found out that LA Park Jr. was going to be on the roster as well. They've been talking about wanting an opportunity for the tag team championship. So here we go against, another, family dynamic, a pretty, big family name in wrestling, the Von Erichs.
Yeah, that family versus family story really makes this have an interesting kind of wrinkle to it.
Yes. And again, very different styles. I mean, the Von Erichs are, iconic in Texas wrestling, and that style versus, again, though, I mean, this is lucha libre, but it's very much more of the hardcore lucha libre, more of that hard hitting. So if there's any more kind of comparison, in some ways it kind of, matches up somewhat well. It's not a high flying type of lucha libre. But, also the Von Erichs, they're still fairly young. They may have it in their blood, but LA Park and Hijo de LA Park, like this is in the stars for them,
Yeah.
So it's again, it'll be very, very interesting to watch next week. But again, I mean, MLW continues to have a really solid lucha libre presence on their weekly shows and even in their events. So MLW is just a fantastic product to watch. Highly, highly recommend it for anyone who's really looking for something different with their wrestling and even in their lucha libre. MLW is something highly recommended.
And it's the easy catch because it's on Wednesday on YouTube. So before the other shows go on the air, so you can just have that on while you're getting ready to watch your AEW or NXT. We won't judge you, whichever one you choose to watch, and just go from there. I mean, you're guaranteed an extra hour of really good wrestling, but that way.
It is. Yeah, and you can catch up on all the previous episodes of Fusion. We've talked about MLW Underground as well. If you're looking at some of their older content, I mean, they truly did kind of pick up where ECW left off. So, LA Park and Hoovy and, just some fantastic matches on their Vampiro, had a run there too. So, and a lot of people do already know about MLW, but maybe not some of the older stuff. So it was very cool when they, produced and released some of that content back in 2020, because it really shed a light on the full history of MLW, and one that has had a very solid appreciation for lucha libre for a long, long time. So with that, our final news story of the day, I'm going to kick it off to Brendan, who has some news from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood.
Yeah, so I really wanted to pitch this. First off, those that have been listening to the show, we've been covering the championship wrestling scene when we were covering primetime wrestling. And as many people will know, the Bodega are representatives of the Lucha Central podcast network, with Papo Esco having his own Straight Out of the Bodega podcast that we run here, as well as Danny Limelight, who we were talking about with so much earlier in the show. So 3 weeks ago, on their programming, it was longer ago than that because they pre-recorded matches. The Bodega won the championship, the tag team championships from Championship Wrestling. And so this last week's main event match was the Bodega defending against 4 Minutes of Heat, which is, as people will also remember, is one of my tag teams from up here in the Pacific Northwest. So, of course, I wanted to watch this so I could talk about it on the air. It's a fantastic match. Congratulations to both teams for putting on an amazing performance. The Bodega did come out on top on this one, so that they were successful in their first title defense, but 4 Minutes of Heat put up a good enough fight that they will probably be given another opportunity in the near future. So you can find that on Championship Wrestling's YouTube page. I believe we also have put some of their stuff up on Lucha Central, so go there, and then do tune in to Straight Out of the Bodega, because I'm sure when he starts recording stuff, he's going to have a few things to say about the Bodega now offering free gold belts.
Yes. Shout out to Papo and Danny. Representa. So good, so good. And yes, episodes of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, also Primetime Live, are also on the Fight TV app. So that's also a great place. And Primetime Live is recorded at Thunder Studios, which is also the larger umbrella partnership, David Marquez and the NWA. It all ties together. It's a big, wonderful world of wrestling. So it all ties together. So if you're a fan of the NWA, Primetime Live, Championship Wrestling, Danny and Papo, whatever that is, you should definitely check out Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. It's been, a show, watching for years. And you really do see stars from all over. Willie Mack's been on there. Lots of other, lucha stars and current stars that you see on, AEW. SCU's had some, Scorpio Sky, previously on there. And so, it's great content. If you're looking for some independent wrestling you want to sink your teeth into, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and the United Wrestling Network is a very, very good place, to bite into.
Absolutely.
Yes. So with that, we've reached the end of another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. The end of the first show of 2021. So thank you all so much for listening and following us into the new year. Don't forget to check out luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. Also, you can follow Lucha Central on social media, at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at Lucha Central.com on Twitter. Also, you got to check out the YouTube page. We mentioned that's where you can find some great Lucha Libre matches for this day in Lucha Libre. Interviews by Denise Salcedo are also up, and from other contributing staff at luchacentral.com. So make sure, if you are looking for something to watch, check it out on YouTube. Well, while you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy, all one word, and I'm at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy. And I'd like to give a shout out to our fan Colin Adams. He messaged me and said that this is his favorite podcast. So
awesome!
Yeah, big shout out
to
Colin this week. So, how about Brendan? Where can we find you on social media?
I am 321. That's the numbers 321. t-shirt guy. T-shirts all spelled out. And I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram with increasing frequency. And I am on Twitter really all the time. So please let me know. Come and grab me over on Twitter or even Instagram and send me all your favorite matches like I was in your indie shows like I was asking for earlier.
Great. And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at the #Miranda, spelled out. I am not on Twitter, so go ahead and just, send that over to Brendan.
I'll take it.
Yeah, he'll take it all of my Twitter messages. Again, Facebook and Instagram at the #Miranda, spelled out. I would also like to give a shout out to Franco's Head, who posted a comment after our end of year awards part 1 episode. He said that it was an excellent analysis and wished us a happy new year. So a big thank you to Franco. Nice. For listening and sending us a nice message. So if you would like for us to give you a shout out, go ahead, follow us on social media, leave us a comment, let us know what you think of an episode, good, bad, or indifferent as well. We're happy to take feedback. We also do that through the different podcast streaming platforms, so you can subscribe, rate, and review on Google, iTunes, Spotify, Speaker, Podbay. You can subscribe so that way you get a notification every time a new episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast drops. You can rate us, let us know what you think, and then leave a review. We're open to suggestions and ideas on future topics and things to talk about. You can let us know what you think of the things we do already talk about. We're happy to get that feedback. But yeah, if you are interested in getting a shout out in a future episode, make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. And that is it. So for Dusty Murphy and Brendan Barr, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you, and we will be back next week.
Respetable público.